Yes, it's the Finnish Football Show. I'm Mark Wiltshire, and thank you, listener, for joining us for FFS 34. And I'm joined today by Keke. Hi, Keke.
Hello.
And by Rich. Hi, Rich.
Hey.
And Mark H was meant to be joining us, but he's been delayed at the office and he's on his way home, so he's going to have to wait in suspense like the rest of the listeners for when this gets published sometime, hopefully on Saturday morning. In this episode, we're going to look forward to this week's Nations League fixtures. There's 2 away games coming for the Huuhkajat, who take on Bulgaria and Wales in the final 2 games of the 2020 Nations League. We'll also look back at the Veikkausliiga season, which was cut short after the 22 regular season games, as we'd speculated in the last show. We'll look also at the winners, the losers, the surprise packages, and the predictably average. There's, I guess, 2 main subjects, but we're going to also have to start by looking back just a couple of days now to the stunning victory for the Huuhkajat, 2-0 away to France in Paris. But we'll come to that shortly. We're recording this on Zoom. As I say, it's going to be published as a podcast and as a video on the Finnish Football Show YouTube channel. So you can't listen live, but we do want your input. Podcast listeners, use social media to get in touch with your feedback. My handle is at Explore Finland. Who are you, Keke?
At Keke Mylläri.
And Rich?
At Escape to Suomi.
And Mark is at FC Suomi. And also dig out the Finnish Football Show Facebook page and group. Ask to join, and we'll let you in. And also take a look at Keke's baby, the Finnish Football Show Instagram page. We've got our regular features, Ja, Silla, Sipuli, and following. So if you 2 gents are ready, let's get going. And let's start. The only place we can start the first half of the show is looking back at the game in Paris on Wednesday. Mark asked us all to contribute some thoughts to the to the predictions article that you put out on Wednesday, and I'm not going to go through and read them all. If anyone wants to see what we wrote, there's a blog post on our feed from Wednesday afternoon. But how were you feeling before the game, Rich?
I was more concerned about the game being played at all. I think, obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, that's changed massively. But I think in the run-up to the game, it seemed like having an extra friendly chucked in during COVID times ahead of 2 big Nations League games seemed completely unnecessary. It's putting the players at risk, both of COVID and of injury, and it seemed to be there to satisfy TV, marketing. I think we suggested maybe that our good friends at Nike might have had a say in that. It was rearranged. It was supposed to be played in March as a run-up to Euro 2020. At about midnight on Wednesday, I completely changed my mind. I thought it was the most essential game ever. Finland beating France in their backyard. It was the first time Finland have ever beaten a team who are reigning world champions. It was the first time they'd ever beaten France. And to be honest, I mean, that both teams put out or initially started a sort of reserve or fringe side, but Finland were decisive, defended really well. I think in midfield had some good bite. Joni Kauko had Paul Pogba in his back pocket. You had 2 debutants scoring fantastic goals. It made headlines the world over. And again, we're almost a year to the day that Finland made the news for qualifying for Euro 2020. They've now gone and beat the world champions away. And I think it was just, no matter what the circumstance or anything else, it was just one of those great results. I think possibly overshadowing the miracle of Hee-Hawn or something like that. But just, beating France 2-0 away, cracking result.
Okay, how did you feel before?
Before I was nervous, and I have to admit, when I saw the team sheet come out, I was a little bit more nervous. But that's why Rive Canavar is the Finland manager, and I ain't, because he knew what he was doing. But I just thought I felt bad for Jesse Joronen. I just thought after the Poland game, where he wasn't really at fault, but he's let 5. I just thought, what is this going to do to these guys' confidence? And then, same as Rich. By the end of the night, I was laying in bed, but I couldn't sleep. I was just watching the highlights over and over again, and it was just. I mean, you've quite rightly pointed out Joni Kauko. He was in absolute beast mode. He was strong. He was muscly, and when he had to draw fouls, he was clever at drawing fouls. And the 2 goals, I just completely. I mean, we've all been raving about Marcus Forss now for a little while, and we've, especially you, Mark, being a Wimbledon fan, you've known what he's all about for a little while. But that run and finish, I mean, that defender he shrugged off plays for Barcelona, and he's just give it one of them and smashed it in the net. So I mean, and then Valakari's goal as well was really, really special. Joronen, who I was worried about at the start, his defence were resilient, and when the ball did finally get past them, he was Johnny on the spot every time. So there you go. Nothing to worry about. Job done.
It's worth noting that the Finnish defence was very good, and they in basic defending and also
team, didn't they?
Sorry,
they defended as a team.
Yes, they did. Yeah, and also last ditch defending as well when it was necessary. Even so, France must have had 7 shots they blazed over the bar. If one of them could shoot, if they had Marcus Forss playing up front, they'd have had a few more goals than they did. But that takes nothing away. That was stunning. Literally a couple of minutes before, I was watching at home with Satu, and she said something about not having many chances, and I said, Forss is very economical with his scoring. He doesn't need lots of chances to score. And a few minutes later, he sort of ran half the length of the pitch and chipped it past a good goalkeeper in and he didn't have space. It was quite a tight spot, and he slotted it away, and it was quite something. And Onni Valakari, that came out of nowhere. I mean, we yelled. I don't normally yell at goals. I did one a few weeks ago when Mate Radetsky scored a screamer from 25 yards for Asikor right at the end of the game. This was my second yell in a few weeks, but that we both did, and the kids came out of the bedroom like, "What's going on?" That was terrific, and I think the confidence thing it's the complete opposite, isn't it? Now, go into the game on Sunday, the first choice team that didn't play on Wednesday must be looking over their shoulders.
Yeah. Exactly.
I actually wrote about Forss and maybe Valakari, like having these young players coming into the squad now, and it's not just them. It's Niskanen. Only been there a few games, coming into the squad, and the younger players that have been there a while, like Soeri and Hammerline, and then they're theoretically the next generation, aren't they, for the next 10 years or whatever? So it's looking good at the moment. I'm very confident for the weekend.
Do you know what it felt like? It felt like especially with those youngsters, they played without any fear. I don't know if that is the confidence of youth or what that is, or if that's something that the team have worked on with their team spirit and all that. But they just looked like they played without fear. They just believed in their ability. They weren't worried that this mob were the world champions. They're just another 11 blokes. They just turned up, played their game. The game plan was executed perfectly. And, that's nothing short of historic, that result.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you look at Forss, for example. I mean, he's been in England for a while. He was released by West Brom, and Brentford picked him up. And Brentford there's this whole thing about them being quite a progressive club in the way they scout and bring young players through. and obviously his loan spell at Wimbledon was cut short of injury. But, he's come on this year. He's scoring, I think, for Brentford. He's not started a league game yet, but he's scoring a goal every 34 minutes. And then when you look at Pukki, who, I honestly think he wouldn't have scored that goal that Force scored. I think the Pukki of a year, 18 months ago seems to have gone, almost regressed to the mean a little bit. And he's not in great form for Norwich this season. You're picking players on form. There was a big hoo-ha about Force. I think he withdrew from a couple of under-21 games to concentrate on playing league football. And there's, Canerva made a point last time of saying he needs time in the under-21s. And I think he doesn't strike me as the sort of person who bows to the public pressure almost. But this time it was kind of, Jensen's injured. He's not in the squad. Force is in form. He's playing, scoring goals in, let's be honest, the Championship is a lot better than most of the top leagues in Europe. Why not? And, he's gone there and shown just the confidence that you'd expect, the kind that I think Poyan Palo had at a young age as well before his injury problems. But he's gone there, that's a fantastic goal.
And what was lovely to see on Instagram the day after was that he'd put his Instagram story was just all of the clips that people have posted of him scoring that goal, and it was just over and over and over from all these different front rooms of people recording their TV. It was quite nice. He's going to enjoy that one. Well done, Marcus.
Well, his granddad played for Finland. Was it in the 60s? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nice little touch there as well.
Yeah, but he didn't score away against France, did he?
I know, he's an amateur.
Yeah. I mean, just what Rich has touched on there about Marcus Force turning down a couple of invitations to the under-21s. I mean, because I'm a typical football fan, I'm allowed to be as fickle as I like. Back then, I was a little bit put out. I was like, he should really go along. It's his national team, blah blah blah. But now I'm completely on his side, and I understand that he did feel that he needed that men's football he saw that men's league football as a more valuable experience, and the proof's in the pudding.
I think Glenn Kamara is the best example of that. Really, when I saw him play a few times for Arsenal under 23s, and technically fantastic player, but he was a boy. He's gone to Scotland and become a man, and I think this is what Force needed. He playing for Brentford B. I mean, they don't have an under 21 team, but they play glorified friendlies most of the time. But he's gone to Wimbledon. Brentford sold their top striker, who, to be fair to him, he's doing well. He scored twice against Arsenal last week, but it's given Force that opportunity. He's playing now as an impact sub for Brentford. He's coming on getting sort of 25, 30 minutes a pop, and he's scoring goals in men's football at, let's be honest, one of the top, certainly the top second tier in Europe.
What do we think about Valakari? Because he's at Paphos in Cyprus along with Paulos Ariyuri. But, is he going to stay there, or is this going to start a bidding war for him after he curled that wonder shot in?
I suspect that by the end of whenever let him do his winter in Cyprus, because let's be honest, we'd all like to be in Cyprus for the winter, but you have to think it's put him on people's radar. I haven't seen much of him playing. He was exciting prospect coming through at Asikor 4 years ago, and he looked good in the Sorman Cup games at the start of the year, and then when his dad left the club as manager, he moved on as well, and that was a shame. I was looking forward to seeing what he could do in the Veikkausliiga. I guess he doesn't want to come back to play here. He's gone to Paphos. It's sunny. He's with Paulos Ariyuri. He's got a teammate there in two different teams, and you have to think if he can do that. Do that some more, the bigger clubs are going to come calling.
Well, I think there was a point he made when he signed for Paphos. Isn't Chris Cleaver his agent? Let me drop him a line.
Possibly, maybe.
I'm sure from the interview you did with him that he suggested that he engineered that move.
Okay.
And I think he said he went there to kind of go somewhere different. He wanted to beat a different path. He'd been at, was it Tromso, I think?
Yeah.
Beforehand, and he did quite well. And I think going somewhere different. I mean, we don't think of Cyprus as a move, but then most young Finns go to Norway, to Sweden, to Denmark, somewhere like that, and then you wonder where next. And I think for Valakar, I mean, he was the under-21 player of the year last year. He's doing well at Paphos, and I think a goal like this, I'm sure Paphos are rubbing their hands. In fact, I think I shared a video of the goal he scored, and it got shared by their analytics boss, their sort of CEO of the club, who does their analytics, saying, "Oh, we told you he could do this, blah 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 blah," and going off into all these charts and stuff. I have no idea what they mean. And you think, for them, he's an investment. He's one of those players that they've taken a bit of a gamble on, and early doors, and you think, the world's his oyster. You don't want to really put a cap on where he can go. He's still young. We've been following him on and off for a while, and fair play to him.
What do we think about the next couple of games? What do you think is going to happen with the squad in the next couple of games? Just as a bit of background, at the moment, the table is all teams have played 4, and there's 2 more games to be played. So Wales are top with 10 points, then Finland second on 9, and then Republic of Ireland third with 2 points, and Bulgaria bottom with 1. So firstly, Finland play Bulgaria, and Wales play Ireland, who they drew with last time. So it's possible that they could be a repeat of that. British sides tend to kind of cancel each other out a bit. So if Finland win on Sunday and Wales and Ireland draw, then Finland are top before playing Wales in Cardiff on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think knowing what they have to do, it's kind of the ball's in their court, really. Give them that advantage. I think knowing that they can go, and knowing that they can, I mean, they've just gone to beat the world champions. They can go to Bulgaria, who, let's be honest, have had some COVID withdrawals in the last couple of days. And again, I think Wales drew with USA on Thursday evening. So, again, a friendly building up. But I think, there's so much at stake. I mean, we talked about in the last pod, you've got nations, I mean, win that group, you get promoted to the top division. You've got big games there already. You're a good shot at getting a playoff for the next World Cup. And also, and again, we've talked about, I love a coefficient. Finland aren't far away from being pot 3 for World Cup qualifying. The draw for that, I think, is December. And if Finland, I think they either have to equal Greece's results or ideally win both games. If they equal Greece's results, they go in pot 3. They've already gone up because of that random Iran beating Bosnia. I mean, that's how weird this whole system is. But you've got all these incentives away. You've got 2 games. Bulgaria, yes, it's winnable. Wales, who knows? I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, but then, Finland went to Ireland, won, and I think in this league where teams aren't that vastly different, the difference between them isn't that big. I think they could go to Wales and get a result. And if they need to go to Wales and get a draw, if Finland put out a full strength team, with the defence, the goalkeeper, the solid midfield, I wouldn't put it past them.
What is a full strength team now after the way that team played on Wednesday? Obviously, we know who we expect to come back into the team, and potentially there's half a dozen or more changes that could take place. Do you think anyone from any of the kind of newer players from Wednesday will keep a place in the team?
I mean, I think we will see a more familiar lineup for sure for these competitive fixtures. But I've got to say, I think the positions up front are up for grabs, and why not? Why not stick with the 2 young fellas who have made such an impact in that game the other night? I mean. I do think the back line and the goalie will be more familiar, but yeah, I think the forward positions are up for grabs. So there you go.
I think I'd be surprised if he didn't play Pukki and Bojan Palo to start with on Sunday, but I think knowing he's got an informed Force on the bench, that's his first sub.
As an impact sub, which is what he's been doing all season, like you said.
Exactly, yeah. I think, and I mean, that was always his first change in the previous games. We brought Jensen on, and Jensen was scoring. I think it was one game he scored on his first touch after 15 seconds. So, I mean, that's what you're looking for. I think Puk and Palo, they're not in great form. I mean, they're scoring the odd goal here and there. It's not ideal, but I think again in that Bulgaria game, as long as you get to half time and then into the second half, then that's when you start making the changes, bring on your quick young players. I think Force will almost certainly be the first off the bench by 60, 65 minutes.
Obviously, Leo Väisänen has gone back to Sweden. He's picked up that injury that we saw the other night. It didn't. I think it may have almost been the way he fell, or I'm not sure what the injury is. It's his foot, I think, or if it got.
He's out for 3 months. Yeah.
Is that what it is now? The prognosis is 3 months. I mean, that's a shame for him. He's been doing all right in Elfsborg and obviously played while he was on the pitch, played quite well the other night. But obviously he's now left the squad, focusing on the games that we've coming up. And so I think the back line will be a more familiar. You'd assume that Toivio and Arajuri would start against Bulgaria, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think. I mean, again, it shows how friendlies were always seen as a kind of an exercise, a training ground thing. But this week, I mean, Valakari was meant to go back to the under-21s after Sunday, and they've said, no, we're keeping him now. This is where we are now. These players are playing for places. I mean, you don't forget you've got the first major tournament coming up. And yeah, I mean, friendlies like that and winning in France is going to do your CV a world of good. And I think Force has put himself, as it stands, certainly in the top 4 strikers. So, yeah.
So we're feeling confident. Even
yeah,
after,
weird.
it kind of is weird, because we were in the space of a few hours, we were turned completely on our heads the other day. But it's nice. It's nice to feel positive. I told you this, Rich. Optimism it feels good.
It's funny because after the game, and obviously all the big sports news outlets were tweeting about it. I think Who Scored said that Finland have won the percentage of games basically since the end of 2016. I was like, yeah, because you remember in 2016, and we joked about it, it was the time we started the podcast, we went for a whole calendar year without a win. The glorious reign of Hans Backer, and how things have changed.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to try something a little bit different for these upcoming games. So rather than watching the games and sharing our thoughts on WhatsApp and then finding a convenient time a week or two later to actually talk about it, we're gonna record something before, during, and after the game. So kind of like our pre-match chinwag, and then a bit of half-time chat, followed by a post-match debrief, and try and put that out nice and quickly after the game. So there'll be no thrills. It'll be just the audio and maybe the same sort of video here, chopped together and get it out quickly. So you'll hear from us. I think if you'd heard from us on Wednesday night, you'd have heard some quite emotional chat, and we'd have probably been going for hours. But let's keep your ears and eyes open for that on Monday morning. We'll try and get that out straight away after the game. And I was just checking on my phone. We're going to do one for the Bulgaria game on Sunday 16th, and then the Wales game is on Sunday 15th, and the Wales game is on Wednesday the 18th. And Wednesday the 18th is actually the Finnish football show's 5th birthday.
Oh,
to the day. That's when we. Oh, cake! But that's exactly 5 years ago that we put that first show out. Soon followed by an episode entitled "Is this the worst time to start a podcast about Finnish football?"
Well, let's see all the new guys starting it in the next couple of months and see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
As young pretenders.
Let's call half time on our Huuhkajat roundup, and let's defer to Mark Hayton in his absence for our Jasilla Sipuli section, where we take a Finnish word or phrase from the football area, and Mark breaks it down for us. And this week's word is, I'm reading from my phone, tatsi. And tatsi is kind of from derived from English word touch, meaning boy control. Boy control, ball control. I'm leaving it in. I'm not even going to bother editing. Ball control. And Mark gave a little phrase in Finnish, and I've been practicing my Finnish lately, so let's see. He said, "Hitsi mikä tatsi." Like, damn, what a touch. So tatsi goes into our Jasilla Sipuli dictionary. Maybe Keke, you should go through some of our back catalogue and put together something for Instagram of all of our words that we've
consider it done.
Sounds good. Let's see what he's come up with over the years.
Yeah.
But before you do that, let's crack on with the second half of the. Oh, actually, there was one other thing we were supposed to talk about. Maybe we can talk about it now before we go into the Veikkausliiga review.
Yes.
Which was about Wissam Ben Yedder, the French player, testing positive for COVID. Any update on that? I saw the headline, but I didn't see any news.
Yeah, so he tested positive after the France-Finland game. He played, I think, just under an hour of the game, but he plays for, someone's going to correct me, is it Monaco or Marseille? One of those. But then they played a game on the weekend past, and it turned out that I think a significant number of the opposition players actually tested positive after that game as well. So it just goes to show really how quickly this thing can spread. I think the threshold for cancelling or postponing these Nation League games is quite high. I think even before the Ireland game, a couple of Ireland players tested positive and they just went, sod it, just drop them and replace them. But yeah, in this case, it was very much he's tested positive. The Finland players, I think they've said they're happy that the testing procedures they've called it their road to playing or something. UEFA have given it some sort of trademark name that they can probably make money off, but they've got testing protocols in place. So as far as I'm aware, at the time of recording, the tests have come back negative for the whole Finland squad. But then, as we know, these things can develop over a period of time. So, you know, a positive or negative test on Friday doesn't mean anything come match day. So it's yeah, but again, is the health of the players that secondary to getting these games played? I don't know. That's a whole different discussion.
But watch this space for Sunday and see if there's any effect on the Finnish squad. We may have the same team facing France for much sadder reasons. Let's move on then to the Veikkausliiga season. Start the second half of the show. I mentioned at the very beginning that the season ended after 22 games. Just as a reminder, there's 12 clubs in the Veikkausliiga, so they play each other twice, 22 games, and then the league was supposed to split into a top half and a bottom half, and each team would play each other one more time in those halves, so there would be 5 more games played. And last year there was some complicated additional playoffs or something, but I think, Rich, you said it was going to be a bit simpler this year. Anyway, it's much simpler because they just ended the season after 22 games. It was just getting too late in the year. I mean, the season, the regular season finished, I think, third week of October, and that's normally when the whole season finishes completely. So, and there were then a few clubs with COVID tests coming back positive, and it just seemed like it was going to be difficult. And the Veikkausliiga clubs took a vote. They needed 9 out of the 12 to vote to end the season. I didn't see what the actual vote was, but the decision was to end the season there.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to be fair, at the start of the season, I mean, the first game of it was July the 1st, when it's normally kind of early April. They had said that it was kind of in the back pocket to end after 22 games, I think. So I think a lot of people saw it as they've just cut it short. But I think this was always the kind of, if we can get to this stage, we've done well. Which, to be fair, I think we got to late September before the first COVID-related postponement, which was the TPS Asiko game. But it then got into October, and then the fixtures started piling up. I think Mariehamn had a bit of an outbreak, which caused other teams to quarantine. And I think even on the eve of the final game of the season, half the ROP squad either were exposed to it or tested positive, and they said, "Well, we're not going to play our last game." And I think, in the interest of everything that was going on, I think, by the time you factor in this international break as well, you'd have been looking at, pending no further postponements, games going up to the end of November, which in Finland, with the climate, is just asking for trouble. I mean, they I think at the start of the season, if they'd said you can get to 22 games and achieve something equitable, it's fairly fair in a sporting environment, I don't see any argument with it. I obviously, from a Cups supporting point of view, I wish they'd ended the season a month earlier. But yeah, at the end of the day, they've done well to get this far.
Yeah, I think that's true. And there were times where we had to, the last few games, wear masks, and I made the kind of picture blog about watching football from behind a mask. But even though it was inconvenient, and I didn't really want to do it, I just had to keep saying to myself, like, we're watching live football. There's so many countries where people haven't been able to watch live football since February or March this year, and I've been to 11 home games and 1 away game this year. Living the dream. So, although they were 11 of Asiko's home games and away games, so that's less of a dream. Should we sort of talk through the teams from the top down to the bottom, starting with Huuhkajat Helsinki, who won the league this year?
Well, yeah, it's normal services resumed, I suppose. Huuhkajat celebrated, what was it, their 30th title win. So,
this is the thing, isn't it? It's 30th men's title.
Yeah, 30th men's title, and they promptly added another 3 stars to above their badge, because they've decided to count the women's titles as well, which puts them on 53, I think. Yeah. 53 titles altogether. Still one behind the world's most successful football club, Glasgow Rangers, who have got 54. So they're not doing too bad.
It's a veritable galaxy of stars on their shirt.
That's it. But it's it's normal services resumed. I suppose they've got the best talent, haven't they? Both coming through and returning talent. So I was particularly pleased for our friend Marcus Halstead for picking up his championship winning medal and a cup winners medal. So big shout out to him. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, they were the best team. I was, to be honest, not trying to get ahead of ourselves, but I was a little bit gutted for Inter Turku that the season ended when it did. They seem to be. Well, they finished second, so they were there or thereabouts all season. They were quite consistent, and now they were just coming into another little bit of form. So I think had it gone on a bit longer, they may have challenged for it. But yeah, they've had to settle for second spot. But
I've got the final league table in the show notes, and Huuhkajat there are top on 48 points, and then Inter third with 41. Second with 41, and Kups are third with 41. It's a 7-point lead, but it kind of only opened up really right at the end, didn't it?
Yeah, I think, I say already, Kups were top after they got knocked out of Europe and they lost their last 4 games. But I think, I'm not sure, Inter just seemed that most consistent. Huuhkajat did it in sort of fits and starts. I think they had a couple of dips over the course of the year, whereas Inter were kind of doing generally fairly well. But yeah, Huuhkajat just have that quality. I think they had a couple of big wins toward the end of the season. They've got the goal scorers, the Risky brothers, Vauanen, all scored decent totals. And I think that kind of talks at the end of the day. They've come away with a double. It's all very successful and already preparing for next season. They've just pinched Jair from Ilves today, Brazilian midfielder, which this is what they do. They normally get to the end of the season, they'll start pinching the best players off the teams who finish just below them. So, again, I mean, it's we're looking a bit ahead of ourselves to next season, but this is what they do. They strengthen and take advantage of that. And they will be in the Champions League again next season. The whole revamped UEFA tournament situation where you've now got no Finnish teams in the Europa League and 3 Finnish teams in the Europa Conference Cup League, whatever, which is weird, but it's the new normal.
So moving down, you touched on Cups there, Rich, and we dedicated one of the shows to them pretty much a little while back when they were playing their games in Europe. But that kind of so near and yet so far, and really seemed to hurt them at the end of the season, like you say, losing in the last 4. Yeah,
I think they did, or I think the expectations around the Europa League games got so much they all got quite caught up in that, and I think it was after a bit of the after Lord Mayor's show sort of thing where of the 6 games they lost 4, drew 1. They have replaced their manager, so the Norwegian Arne Erlandsen, who I heard dubbed the Norwegian Tony Pulis, he's been sacked, or his contract wasn't renewed, and our friend Simo Valakari is now the Cups manager. So bring back the title.
Yeah, it could be good for them. He's had success in Finland before, won the Veikkausliiga. He's inheriting a team that has had a couple of seasons of performing well. So, good luck to Simo and good luck to Cups. Not too much luck, but a bit of luck anyway. What about 4th place was Huuhkajat?
Yeah, so they've qualified for Europe as well because of Huuhkajat's double. They had a very up and down season. I mean, they only lost 3 games but drew 10. I think at one point they were the last unbeaten team going into sort of mid-season, but they had an odd one. They didn't score that many goals. I think of note, I'm not sure what's going on behind the scenes at Huuhkajat, but they've had a very interesting, and I'm not sure if it's interesting for the fans. They seem to be losing a lot of their young players and some of their established players and bringing in players from abroad. I'm not sure if there's some issues in the boardroom, and a lot of the coaching staff have gone as well, which seems like there's boardroom or corporate decisions going on there. So I think change at that level in Finland normally rings worrying bells. So we'll see how they do for next season.
I mean, that's finishing 4th for Huuhkajat. That's a decent result for them. I mean, I hope what you've spoke about there, Rich, doesn't hurt them too much, because they've had not dark days, but they've had their recent history out of the Veikkausliiga. They've made their way back, and to finish 4th, even after a 22 game season without the split, is a decent return for them, really. So yeah, I hope that whoever is being the puppet master there doesn't mess about too much and tries to build on that at least, but remains to be seen.
And below Huuhkajat came Ilves, only a point behind on 36 points. And I saw Ilves towards the end of the season at Asiko, and they were really good. They were closing down. They were kind of hunting in packs. I don't know if lynxes hunt in packs, but that's what Ilves were doing on that day, and just they really deserved it. And if it wasn't against my team, I'd have been quite appreciative of how they played. And it was, I guess, it was a decent season for them, finishing fifth, 10 wins, 6 draws, six defeats.
I think under Jarkovic, they've done really well. I think he's been there, 4, possibly 5 seasons now. And they've been that consistent top half table. They won a cup a couple of years ago. And I think, we're at the point now where Ilves finishing 5th is probably slightly disappointing. I think they're so well run generally. I know there's plans to move stadium in the near future if things get back to normal. The sort of big thing, I suppose, is they've lost probably their key young player in Lauri Ali Mulumaki. I always get his name messed up. He's gone to Venezia in Italy, which is a great move for him.
Yeah.
And going sort of completely off topic, they've got a beautiful kit this season. But he's and one thing that I always enjoyed is he scored what was voted goal of the Swarman Cup. I think the group stages when he put away an expertly taken penalty, and that was voted goal of the round. God bless democracy on Facebook. But yeah, so I mean, again, he's a key player for them. He was scoring quite a few goals. They're normally quite good at recruiting, so hopefully we'll see. They've got a decent conveyor belt of young players kind of on the cusp as well. A friend of the show, Peter Lettinen, he watches a lot of their kind of junior and reserve games, and I think he's always quite enthusiastic around the state of the production line there. So fingers crossed.
I mean, they had two guys in the 10 top scorers in the league. Like you mentioned, Lauri Alamulimäki there, but they had Nathan Skut. I don't know how you say it. Skuta as well.
Yeah.
He chipped in with eight goals. So
Ruutu had I haven't watched it yet. They've got a clip show, I think a mini documentary about him as this kind of up and coming. I think it's called like Next Star or something like that. But he scored a great goal for the Finland under 21s against Northern Ireland recently, and I think there's a lot of buzz around him. So hopefully he can step up next season. I think he scored in their Europa League game at Shamrock Rovers as well. So I think there's, as young players go, I think he's another one to keep an eye out if he stays at Ilves and gets a decent number of games next year.
What about Lahti? I saw Lahti
boring.
A couple of times. That was where. Say that again.
Boring.
That's kind of what I was going to say. I saw them twice, and we had we had a day trip down to Lahti to watch them. In a few of us in a car, all the way down there. It's a 4-hour drive, hanging around a little bit, watching the game, all the way back for a 0-0 draw. It's kind of Seinäjoki's bogey team. It was good fun. There were a few friends all together, and we had a good day. But the football, it was a nice day out ruined by a game of football.
They're one of these teams who, I think, mid-table mediocrity was, if you read it up in the dictionary, the FC Lahti club crest in the page. They've got, they've got some interesting players. Vahid Hambo went there last season, did quite well. They had that player, was it Imbongo from the Congo, who had that cracking sending off, which seems to be more interesting than the goals. But they just seem to be one of these clubs who just seem just content to be sixth. And no shame in it, but it's just they're always 6th or 7th, and it's weird.
It is. I mean, they got a beautiful stadium with those ski jumps in the background. They've got they turned out some beautiful jerseys. I really enjoyed the white away kit by Umbro this season. They signed Kari Argivor, and that was the last anyone sort of heard about. And they just sort of kept under the radar. And like Rich said, just finished where they always do. So fair play to them,
Moving down to, so they finished 1 point above Asikor. So Lahti was 6th on 32. Oh, sorry, and 1 place above Asikor, who were on 29 points. It was a trying season, but towards the end, we had a little run, I guess, early autumn of I think 5 wins out of 6 or something like that, and it got sort of the prospect of we can finish 6th and we can get in the top half, and then the end of the season went a bit kind of inconsistent again. But there were a couple of cracking games, or not cracking games, but cracking finishes to games to keep the excitement going, where we got a couple of victories with almost the last kick of the game. I can see that a few players have already left, a few fringe players that, you know, them leaving won't really make an impact on the team. I think the players they brought in halfway through this season, I'm hoping they stay. Murillo at left back has actually signed a new contract.
He's recovered from his serious injury.
That he could have done himself a mischief there. You back down. And we're hoping that Emmanuel Ledesma comes back from his winter holiday in Argentina or wherever he's gone, and brings his family over and settles down, because we'd like to see some more of that. And also Jake Jervis up front just brought some mobility and just a bit of kind of fight and power up front, and scored a couple of decent goals as well. So let's see. The positives, I think, are the young players coming through and sort of making spots their own in the team. Lepisto up front scored a few goals, and Vainiumpa and Tikkanen at the back particularly kind of come through the academy and into the first team, which is what football fans want to see. What about Huuhkajat? Okay, this is a bit of a story. So Huuhkajat had a decent season, finished on 28 points. They were never in trouble. It was solid. But now the stuff has hit the fan. Who broke this news in our WhatsApp group today? Who wants to start with this?
Rich.
Well, in Huuhkajat's case, I mean, I think they always had some trouble a few years ago financially when they got promoted and trying to get themselves established in the top flight. Their majority shareholder, who's a Chinese gentleman called Lucas Changjin, he also owns the Danish club Velja, or Velja, however you pronounce that. He is an agent, or he's involved in the selling and the signing of players, which is how he's made his money. Because of the coronavirus, because of the way that he earns his money normally, his income hasn't done too well. He hasn't made very much money from Huuhkajat. And over the last few days, he's basically made it clear that unless Huuhkajat are looking to become essentially a feeder club for his Danish interest, that he's going to withdraw the majority of his shareholding. And with the Veikkausliiga licensing decisions coming in the next few days, they're looking at raising the best part of €500,000 at short notice in order to fulfill their licensing criteria. I mean, we know from, and we had this discussion in our WhatsApp group as well, about how 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big glut of licensing changes when clubs were going through some financial issues. And I think one year, Mupa went down, Honka, various clubs were having financial issues. And, you know, the big risk of Huuhkajat losing this money and not being able to fulfill those conditions is that they'll either have to declare bankruptcy or get relegated down to the Kakkonen, the third tier, or the second division. The fact that this is allowed to happen, that one person could just withdraw the funding, shows how delicate it is. And I think, you know, and I know we've talked a lot in previous episodes about how Huuhkajat and Hoiko, that Stadin derby, has become a marketing tool for the league in normal years anyway. I mean, this year it was quite the opposite. It actually made it look really bad with the pitch invasion at the end of the first game. But I think losing potentially that game is more than just losing a team. It loses the Veikkausliiga's big league draw, the one that goes viral around the world on social media. It's the one game that sells out over 10,000 tickets. And, all because someone wants it as a feeder club for his, and I think Huuhkajat had, 3, maybe 4 players from that club already on loan this season who did quite well, to be fair, but it's just showing that, coronavirus, it's not just cutting the season short, it's also making a difference for how clubs are making money or losing money, how they're being run. And I think if he goes, I think the way they were looking at doing it was recruiting people or groups to invest 25,000 euros, enough by Monday. But you're talking about investing a large amount of money, because in Finland that is a huge amount of money for a football club. At short notice during coronavirus, whatever stage we're at, in order to keep a club in the top division, which having that power is wrong, but that's football.
I guess people should keep an eye on your Twitter feed, Rich, because you're likely to share what comes your way as this develops over the next week or so. Yeah,
I think by Monday, that's when the decision is being made, the 16th. Whether there's going to be any leeway in that or not, I don't know. But it's been confirmed by the CEO of the company to Ilta Sanomat that this is the case. This is legit. This isn't rumour control. It's just a case of how much money can they raise and can they prove to Veikkausliiga that they'll be able to make it through and fulfil their fixtures next season, which, a club like Huuhkajat losing best part €500,000, that's probably half their playing budget. I think so. It's it's disgusting, but that's where we are. We've got Chinese people, Chinese agents, basically chucking money around in order to boost their own portfolios.
If that obviously there's not a lot anyone can do about the situation at the moment. But if Huuhkajat are allowed to be chucked out of that league for whatever reason, for this financial problem, like you say, Rich, that Stadion Derby is the one spectacle, the one real true spectacle that the Veikkausliiga can hang their hat on and market around the world. It shows you that there is a football culture alive and well in Finland, and growing. And I just think it's more valuable than that, just some guy's little plaything that he decides, I don't want to put any more cash into that anymore. I'm out of here. I don't know. It's like you say, it is disgusting and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. But
then that's the food chain. I think it's I suppose the equivalent. It's Chelsea and Vitesse Arnhem. Arnhem are happy to play that role because Chelsea keep them going. And I think they are. However the decision making is done there, Huuhkajat are at risk really of losing a lot more than league status. We've seen a lot of clubs bear in mind had 4 players last season on that Danish club. Feeder clubs are the way things. That's, if that is to happen, that would be a shame, because Finnish football in normal times was starting to get back onto an even keel. They were starting to run a lot better, and this would be a huge, albeit coronavirus related, but it would be a huge casualty.
I guess all we can do for now is wish Huuhkajat good luck and follow the story, see what comes from it. Below them, we got 3 teams that by the end of the season were fighting it out not to finish 11th and in that playoff place. We had in 9th were Mariehamn on 23 points, Huuhkajat in 10th on 22 points, and TPS Turku finished in 11th on 21 points. Rich, Mariehamn started the season quite well, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They'd Albion Ademi scoring goals. I think at sort of halfway through the season or so, he was on over a goal a game. I think at one point signed a year's option on his contract, and promptly dried up. I think he got linked to a move to Dinamo Zagreb, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I think sort of after that they went off a cliff a little bit, and almost literally, because I think on the way home from an away game in Helsinki to Hifki, their ferry ran aground and they had to be evacuated, and it's just one of those occupational hazards, I think. And I mean, from what I've heard, again, a lot of it's rumours and stuff. There's some issues behind the scenes there. I think players not getting on with coaching staff, and some of the decisions being made at boardroom level perhaps not paying off. And by all accounts, I think there was a lot of discussion, and there's a few fans talking about how there's some apathy towards the team at the moment. I mean, bear in mind, we're 4 years since they were champions. The attendances were low, even by current standards, and I think there's a general feeling of malaise, that perhaps there's a bit of impetus needed somewhere in the club, not necessarily financially or anything like that, but I think maybe just a change and maybe a bit more modernisation around the way the club's run.
So what about below Mariehamn? We have Huuhkajat, and Sami Hyypiä came into the club halfway through the season. He did something to help them stay up, but they finished 10th and just 1 point above the relegation playoff.
Just before I talk about Huuhkajat, maybe Åland United should introduce a men's team for the Åland Islands, because they did quite well with a Kansalaisliiga and a women's cup double. So the people on the island do have something to cheer about. So they did okay, but quite embarrassingly, Huuhkajat were my dark horse for this season. My old man Crush Aero Markkanen turned up there, and I thought he was going to set the league on fire and bang in a load of goals. But for whatever reason, it didn't quite work out. I mean, he seems to be happy there, and he seems to be enjoying life down there. But yeah, on the pitch, it didn't quite work out. I mean, Sami Hyypiä was parachuted in to save the day, and seems to have succeeded in that. But I think he's back on his trail bikes now, and and that's him, job done. I don't know if we'll see him there next season. But what was the other young forward who smashed a few goals in for them? Oijala, is it?
I'm not sure. I kind of followed. I was following Maximus Tainio quite a bit, just because of his interesting career path. But I think he even went on loan to Guyana at one point. But the nepotism pays off, because he got in the team towards the end of the season. Did old Maximus Decimus Meridius Tainio.
I'm gonna answer your question if I can. Salomon Oijala.
Oijala.
He scored 6 in 21. That was their top scorer this season.
But yeah, I think at one point they were looking like very close, and of course in the end it did look quite close with TPS for that relegation playoff spot. But again, for a first season up, they'd been away for I think 7 or 8 years since they got relegated last time, and I think I'm sure if you'd given them 10th at the start of the season, they wouldn't have been too unhappy.
Again, Rich, similar to Hifki, Huuhkajat are a team we want in the top division. They're a classic, historical Finnish football club. We want them in the top division, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, after Hoiko, they have the most titles, and I mean they had one. I think they're the joint best Finnish performance in Europe. I think they reached the Cup Winners' Cup quarterfinals in 1990 or 91, I think. So that's a sort of achievement we need to recognise.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Keke, your dark horse for the season. We did our predictions at show at the start of the season, and I think maybe once the season's all over and these games are out of the way, we've got 1 or 2 interview shows lined up, and then we should also at least 1 or 2 of us get together and talk through some of the predictions overall, not naming and shaming, but overall look at what was predicted and where it came out. But I think many of us thought TPS would be down near the bottom. They finished, as I said before, in 11th place, 21 points, but they were still fighting right until the last game, and now they're in a playoff with the second place team from Huuhkajat, which is KTP.
Yeah, I think obviously they had a really bad start to the season. They changed their manager about a third of the way through, brought the Finland legend Jonathan Johansson in. He did pretty well. I think there was some controversy, obviously, initially on his arrival. And TPS have a good habit of getting up for at least 2 games a season when they play Inter in the derby. And it's going to be a big sort of end of season for them as well. They've got 2 of their famous legends are retiring, or at least leaving the club at the end of the season. Got Ramonen and Aritalo, the championship manager legend, finishing after tomorrow's match. I think again another club who, had you offered them 10th at the start of the season, would have bitten your hand off after. And they're very much the definition of a yo-yo club. I think of the 5 last playoff matches, they've contested 4 of them in either Veikkausliiga or Huuhkajat, and that weird statistic that came out of the last 6 playoff ties, all of the first legs in those 6 have ended 0-0 and have been decided on the second match. So again, finished 0-0. And at the time of recording, Saturday afternoon, they're playing KTP. Be interesting. I think either one staying in the top or playing in the top division next season will be interesting. TPS means a Turku derby. KTP seem to be making a habit this year of just scoring scorchers just purely to go viral. And yeah, there'll be whoever plays next season will be interesting. But yeah, TPS, I've been over there a couple of times to see them play, and it's always interesting. And they've got a good fan base as well. So fingers crossed for them.
I don't think any of us predicted that Rops would finish bottom with
5 points.
5 points, a win and 2 draws all season.
I could have got 5 points off them.
And I think there was some discussion, was there, towards the end of the season that they might not be devastated to go down from a financial point of view. I'm sure the fans certainly aren't happy, and the players on the last game of the season weren't happy. Their last game of the season was at home to Astikor. They went 1-0 down. They pulled it back to 2-1 up. And then it was one of Seinäjoki's kind of late comebacks, the screamer from Radetzky that I mentioned before that had me yelling on the sofa. And it kind of knocked the stuffing out of them right at the whatever stuffing was left in them right at the end. A few years ago, they were right up near the top. They were challenging. They were horrible to play against and horrible to watch. But where did it all go wrong?
Well, that screamer that Radetzky scored was one of 51 goals they've let in this season. So I'm suggesting that's where it's gone wrong.
Yeah. I mean, when you compare to that season, I think they were one of the clubs the year Astikor won it. I think they were in contention on the final day. I think they ended up coming second. They, under Juha Malinen a few years ago, were, as you say, tough to beat, really well drilled. They always had a habit of having a couple of good goal scorers. Normally, Koko, who's still there, but he's just suffering from constant injuries at the moment. And they've positioned themselves in this really weird place where they are almost a feeder club for Hoiko. They get Hoiko's young players on loan. Their managers always seem to come from Hoiko's coaching or their own Hoiko's own sort of reserve club. And they, despite being the club of Lapland, the whole essence of that, I mean, they don't seem to have an identity, which I find strange. You know, they're in this weird position that it's something that is marketable. They're the club from the Arctic Circle, and they've got this beautiful new stadium. Well, I say new, a couple of years old, and there's so much unique about it. And yet, they were horrible this year. They were the ones who really wanted the season to end after 22 games, both for Corona reasons, because I think half their squad were riddled with it by the end of the year, and for financial reasons, because, like you said, the finances involved in where they're located geographically, they have to pay to travel. Traveling to Mariehamn, for example, is crippling for them. Even the train down to Helsinki, they're taking players, coaches, kit, etc. And imagine, fortunate in that position that you don't have to sit through a whole season and watch your club just get they were taken apart a few games, but they had these games where, it's one of those things where for 89 minutes they're doing well. I think they had a game against Huuhkajat where for 89 minutes they went toe-to-toe with them and were doing really well, and then Huuhkajat did them on the counter in the last minute. And it's just stuff, when they played TPS in Johansson's first game, and they made this big song and dance. He's not quarantined, he's just flown over from Scotland, and they made him sit outside the dugout on a patio chair. And TPS, that was their first win of the season. Rops away became a gimme. And then that was the one that I know I usually have a laugh about foreign gamblers on this podcast, but the one win came away to Huuhkajat in what the foreign gamblers assumed would probably pay off their mortgage. And Rops went there and won, and it was the standard. I won't repeat a lot of the comments on social media, but the foreign gamblers normally give me some good ammunition after a game. But it's a shame. In the time I've been following Finnish football, nearly 10 years now. They've won the cup. They've been in Europe. They've done well in the league. They finished in the medal positions, and now who knows? The weird thing is if players were looking forward to not having to do a long trip, they've been replaced by AC Oulu, who, while not as far north as Rovaniemi, is still a fair old trek. So. Yeah, sod's law. But rotten.
And we've been going quite a while now with a small technical break in the middle that the listener won't be too aware of, hopefully. Why is it so much better for their finances to be in the Ulkonen? Because it's still a national league. It's not regional, so they're still going to be travelling.
Yeah, but I think the expectations, and plus as well the money that there'll be, the expenditure is going to be lower. Let's be honest, the wages will be lower, and I think just that chance. And I know a lot of the fan groups have kind of said that it'll do them the good that having that year out. And this is the assumption, it will be a year. We've seen from history it's not always that easy. But I think that chance to regroup, to clear some of the chuff. They did it before when they were one of the big victims of the match fixing scandal of around 2008, I think it was. And they got absolutely ripped apart for that. So I think they've come back stronger before. Hopefully they'll do it again. But I think, that they need to find that groove. And I called it identity, but they need to find their essence somewhere, and they need to become the Rops of what it was 2015-16 again, and not be this limbo club. They need to get themselves sorted. I
think let's just run briefly through the Veikkausliiga top scorers. Let's do the top 5 because Mark, although he's not here, he wouldn't forgive us if we didn't mention Roope Riski at least once a show. Keke's got his plug-in for Eero Markkanen, so we'll get Roope Riski in there as well. 20 games and 16 goals. That's pretty good return in any league. And then we mentioned before Albion Ademi at Mariehamn, 22 games and 14 goals. Timo Furuholm, who seems to have made a position in the top 3 of this list every season, very much his own. Inter, 10 goals in 21 games. And then 2 players on 9 goals. Yasin Amin Asenoon at Lahti, 22 games, 9 goals. And Tim Väyrynen at Huuhkajat, 21 games and 9 goals. So that's a tidy top 5. But Riski and Ademi were kind of well away at the top there.
Riski's a cut above, really, and I know I'm just basically parroting what Mark says every week in our WhatsApp group, but how he's not in the Finland squad, I don't know.
I have to agree with that, although after what we witnessed on Wednesday, maybe Rive knows what he's doing after all.
He earns more than me. He deserves it. But I mean, Risky's had an interesting career, him and his brother. But yeah, I mean, 16 in 20 games, and I think his goal per minute ratio is outstanding as well. He makes that even better. But I think, it's a difficult situation. But we need Mark to have his little bugbear. So let that be it.
And how about if we wrap up this episode, this whopper, I think it's going to be, with our full-time feature, which is following. And Keke made a substitution as the game was going today. So, Keke, introduce your nomination for following this week and tell us who it is, what's their tag, where they are, and why you want to nominate them.
So yeah, for this show, I've gone with Armada Turku. So I was lucky enough to speak to one of the main players from Armada Turku. For those of you who don't know, they are one of Inter Turku's fan groups. They're the guys who are creating all the noise and all the colours and all the showmanship that you'll see at Inter Turku games with their huge tifos and their smoke bombs and their singing. So their Instagram is pretty nice and colourful. So you can follow them on Instagram at Armada Turku, and you can follow them on Twitter at Armada Turku. So hopefully we'll be getting an episode out soon where you can listen to me chat away with one of the guys from the fan group, and he tells me all about their tifos and how their group came to be, and their love for Finnish football and supporting Inter Turku. So give those guys a follow, and when the episode's out, check it out.
And the episode being out is very much on me. Work has been busy lately. We've been busy with in between shows. Yeah, I'm sorry for being busy at work. It hasn't been like that all year, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I also thought that we're going to be quite active in the next week around these Nations League games, and then the season ends. So we'll keep that chat. I haven't listened to it yet because I haven't edited it yet. So I'm looking forward to that as well. It's not often I have a Finnish football show to listen to as a listener. So I'm excited by this as well. And I think we'll have a few pictures in the blog as well to show some of the Armada Turku's work. So thanks for that.
They did a lot of interest at the cup final last month when both teams, it was at Turku's stadium, and Hoikor and Inter both got fined for smoke-based, and the Palolito fined themselves for allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
So I think they've moved $1,000 from one pot into another. I always refer to it as their Christmas party fund. I don't know if they're having it this year, but you always say only in Finland. But these things always seem to happen only in Finland, don't they?
It's true enough. Okay.
And speaking of interviews, we've got another quite exciting one lined up. I won't reveal who that's with just yet, but watch this space. We should have something coming up in the next month or so.
Is that something you're working on, Keke?
Well, I've made some. It's a group effort. I've made some contacts, and we've had some positive feedback. So yeah, we'll approach that one as a group, I think.
That one.
That one.
And I've got one in the pipeline as well, from a different level of Finnish football, but I think it's going to be worth doing. So we'll keep this stuff coming through the.
It's almost that time of year. I need to try and get on top of the one I was going to do. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, enough tantalising the listener with your promises. Let's wrap it up there. Remember, join our new Facebook page for content. It's not new anymore. I'm taking new out of the script. It's been there for a year. Join our Facebook group page for content that comes directly from the Finnish Football Show team, so our podcasts and blogs and so on. You'll also find a link there to our Facebook group, and that's where we kind of share other people's stories and news and things that we think you might want to see. You can also join in, or even better, instigate a conversation. So I mentioned earlier also Keke's Instagram page. He's He's showing it to the screen now, although no one will see it, Keke, because I'm talking.
Okay.
So make a noise and then show it. Perfect. That's exactly the sort of noise to make on a football podcast. We're on Instagram. We're on the YouTube channel where you'll find this video. And remember, you can find us all on Twitter. Explore Finland, at FC Suomi, at Keke Muulavi, and at Escape to Suomi. So, until next time, Keke, goodbye.
Moi.
And Rich, goodbye.
No.
And from me, goodbye. Thanks a lot.